Tonight on the Black Channel, no marching, no protesting, no demonstrations, and able to get results. The Black Channel is live. Unapologetic, unadulterated, and absolutely uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the everlasting superfortress of intelligent black thought. We are the Black Media. This is the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the voice of Black America, the Black Authority, broadcasting to you live from the only historically black college and university of higher education and learning in the cosmos. You are, of course, welcome to join us. And join us you shall, because on tonight's program. So, when things happen, you watch to see how it occurs. And furthermore, you have to watch to see who it's occurring to. And then that gives you some idea of whether or not you are experiencing proper results or not. It also tells you what you're up against. And there's a story I wanted to go over here tonight because I think this puts it, there's a lot going on, but I wanted us to do a gut check. I want us to do a gut check on this so that we can know exactly what we're dealing with here. This is a story. And I want you all to pay attention. I'm taking this a little slowly because I need you to pay attention to this as we go along. As you can see on your screens here, this is a story. Native American tribe in Maine buys back island taken 160 years ago. Yeah. The Passamaquoddies purchased a Pine Island for $355,000. Now let me go ahead and go into a few details here. For $449,000, you could buy 143 acres of forest with sweeping views of the rugged shoreline of Big Lake in Maine on the east coast of the United States. It's a unique property steeped in history with only 2 owners in the last 95 years, wrote the real estate agent from the privateislandonline.com. In fact, Kiwasui Monahique, or Pine Island, is its original name, and it technically has just one true caretaker, the Passamaquoddy, a small tribe of 3,700 Native Americans who have lived there for at least 10,000 years. They've lived there for at least 10,000 years. It's a spiritually important place for the tribe, filled with graves from devastating smallpox, cholera, and measles outbreaks caused by white settlers. Very interesting when they talk about these other people. They have no problem making it about the white settlers. That's not an issue. Nobody has a problem calling that out. Paging Ron DeSantis. Now listen to this part. In 1794, it was officially granted to the tribe by Massachusetts for their service during the Revolutionary War. Oh, so you come and fight in some of their wars and whatnot, and it can be, the land that you're already on can be granted to you. But after 1820, you got that right, 26 years later, within their lifetime, after 1820, when Maine became its own state, colonialists changed its title, voiding the treaty. Well, doesn't that tell you a lot right there? We changed the title and we're voiding the treaty. Really? Maybe you can take it to court with them. Who knows? Maybe you can take it there. In the 1851 census, there were 20 Passamaquoddy living there. In 1861, there were none. In the 1851 census, there were 20 Passamaquoddy living there. By 1861, there were none. 10 years later, there were 0. Somebody called in last night and asked me, Jason, what do you think the plan is? Do you think the plan is physical extermination? To which I would suggest to you, when has the plan not been physical extermination? When has the plan been something other than that? When has there been something other than that? By 2021, they had not only lost all but 130,000 acres of the original 3 million, they hadn't stepped foot on Pine Island in 160 years. Now, I want you all to keep that one in mind most of all. Keep that number in mind most of all, 160 years. Very, very important to our discussion tonight. It says the land was stolen from us and it's been every chief's goal ever since to return it, said Chief William Nichols, 51 years old, leader of the tribe's Indian Township reservations for the last 11 years, who spotted the advert on the shop notice board on July 4th last year. Now, did you hear that? 160 years. And is anyone telling them it's been too long, it's been too much, that's been too long ago, why should we do that? XYZ. 160 years now. 160 years. But is anybody hitting them with the, well, that was so long ago? I'm just wondering here. I'm wondering if anyone's hit them up with that. It goes on to say here that in March, with a grant from conservation charities, the tribe raised $355,000 and finally bought the island back. Donald Saktama, the tribe's historic preservation officer, added, quote, "Our concept of land ownership is that nobody owns land. Instead, we have a sacred duty to protect it. This is like finding a lost relative. The reclaiming of Pine Island is the latest successful land back attempt by U.S. indigenous groups following the loss of 1.5 billion acres since 1776, resulting in poverty, violence, and cultural apartheid. They've gotten back 130,000 acres. Well, I'm sorry. 143 acres. They got back 143 acres. They've lost 1.5 billion. But they have been, quote, given, at least had to buy back 143 acres. I want you to let that germinate for a moment there. 160 years, and they were able to get back 143 acres, while Native Americans have had over 1 billion taken from them. That's not even Jedi mind tricking. That's not even Jedi mind tricking. This is just theft. It says here that in July last year, the formerly landless Esselen tribe purchased 1,200 acres in California's Big Sur for $4.5 million, also donated by conservationists, 250 years after being forced into Christian missions. In 2019, the Wyote tribe won back the 280-acre Dilawat Island in California when the city of Eureka returned it for free, 159 years after a massacre. So in other words, they lost their land through violence and bloodshed. And by the way, yes, you are correct. Some of these tribes here owe us, but we'll come to that later. It goes on to say here that there's also a growing movement by many public and private institutions to be more transparent, with Harvard University, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and the Oscars announcing, quote, land acknowledgements. The Native Land app will even show you what territory your house is built on. They have an app for that. Now, it goes on to say here that whilst critics call land acknowledgements empty gestures, others claim it paves the way for legal victories. Now, folks, I've got two main things I want you to hear tonight. This one is the first. Dr. Mishana Goman, a professor in American Indian Studies at the University of California, Los Angeles, and member of New York's Tonawanda Band of Seneca Tribe, said acknowledgements are, quote, a good start, but that a big catalyst has been the pandemic and murder of George Floyd. These are her words, not mine. She said these acknowledgements are a good start, but that the big catalyst has been the pandemic. More importantly, the murder of George Floyd. To which she says it's like people suddenly woke up to centuries of atrocities against indigenous and black communities and are more open to dialogue. So every time we turn around, the only people with a legitimate grievance, the only people with an actual legitimate grievance, and every time we hit the streets, somebody tries to piggyback on us. Next thing you know, the tangible benefits that we're saying we need, they shift them to everybody except us. They acknowledge that we're the ones who are the driving force behind this, which means that we have the legitimate grievance, and yet the energy gets shifted elsewhere, the focus gets detoured elsewhere, and the benefits get accrued by everyone except the catalyst that put this into place. And these folks didn't have to hit the streets or march or protest. They didn't have to stand in front of the police stations. They didn't have to have uprisings. We were the ones putting in the sweat and the tears out there. And other folks are benefiting off of something that's supposed to be focused on us. I'm showing you that she's saying it herself. Well, people suddenly woke up to centuries of atrocities against indigenous and black communities. Ma'am, if you don't quit, In July last year, amid global marches on racial injustice, protesters and tribal citizens blocked roads around the tourist destination of Mount Rushmore in South Dakota, demanding the government hand it back after it was taken from the Lakota in 1877, despite a treaty because gold was discovered. In 1980, the Supreme Court granted the tribe compensation valued at $1 billion in 2011, but they want their home, not cash. Well, for those of us over here who are the descendants and the freedmen, we want the cash. You're giving everybody else money. It's time to run the bag over here. Don't tell me about scholarships or anything else spiritual. It's time to run the bread. It's time to run that bag. You notice with everybody else, they go ahead and pony it up. But with us, all of a sudden, it becomes something else. You got to do something else. Can we give you something else? Dr. Goldman said it was an example of, quote, land back being about more than justice for the indigenous community. Land back being about more than justice for the indigenous and money. Quote, it's about having healthier relationships with the land for the good of humanity, she said. Whatever that means. Increasingly, this is why conservation charities with deep pockets are stepping in. The Passamaquoddy bid was funded by First Light, a collective of ecological groups founded in Maine 4 years ago to return tribal lands. Now, let me get this straight. 4 years ago, these folks get together for reparations for these people. All it took was 4 years and things start happening. Meanwhile, you got us all over the place here and you're not seeing the same movements. There's money out there. There's folks giving money, but it isn't going the same way. Quote, we have a role in the systemic injustice that was inflicted on indigenous people and therefore a responsibility addressing that, said Mark Berry, a forest director for First Light member, the Nature Conservancy, who donated the bulk of the island's funding, as well as returning land it owned to tribes in Nebraska, Alaska, and Oregon. It'd be interesting to see where First Light and the Nature Conservancy get their money from, wouldn't it? Maybe we should do an investigation of that. Peter Forbes, another First Light member, added, quote, this is about keeping our heads down and centering tribal voices. If the land hadn't been stolen, they wouldn't need to buy it back in the first place. For the Passamaquoddy, who lost members to COVID-19, reacquiring Pine Island during a pandemic is significant. It was during the Great Dying when 90% died from European diseases between the 1500s and 1800s that the island came to their rescue. In an act of self-sacrifice, infected members quarantined on the neighboring island of Mununui, Monique, that it was renamed Gordon's Island by the colonialists who took it, but which was returned by a paper company in 2003. Corey Hinton, a young Passamaquoddy lawyer who has just welcomed a new baby, told The Guardian, it made me realize that my people have lived and died on that island since time began. When the pandemic is over, we will return to dance with our ancestors again. Very glad to hear that. Very nice to hear that. But by the way, need I remind you of how you got here? You got here because we lit the fire. You got here because we are the engines of cultural change. We are the engines of social change. We are the color that doesn't run. We didn't sit up here and George Floyd was killed and then we tried to see if we could check our immigration status in Canada. And everybody else is benefiting from the fact that we, the societal and social leaders of change, are continuing in exactly the same pathology we always have. Because we've stood still, everyone else has been able to move forward. Everyone else has been able to move forward. Now, there is another story There actually is another story here, by the way. There's another story here, and well, something. Native tribe to get back land 160 years after largest mass hanging in U.S. history. Okay, do I have the same story up here? Did I bring the same story up twice? No. This is June 4th of 2021. The story I just read to you all was June 4th, 2021. Well, what is this? Native tribe to get back land 160 years after largest mass hanging in U.S. September 3rd, 2023. Minnesota. Oh, this one is Maine. Yeah, tribe in Maine. This one is Minnesota. One is 2 years ago, and 2 years later, another tribe with a 160-year grievance. Well, all of a sudden, things is happening here. Oh, wait a minute. Let me check the paperwork. We thought I had made a mistake for a few moments here and pulled up the same article twice. No, this is actually two different ones over the course of 2 different years. And also, in addition to the ones that they just named on here from 2 years ago, these land acknowledgement cases and giving back land and all these other places here. By the way, yeah, this is updated 2 years later here. We go from Maine to Minnesota. Let's go ahead and check the ballistics. Golden prairies and winding rivers of a Minnesota state park also hold the secret burial sites of Dakota people who died as the United States failed to fulfill treaties with Native Americans more than a century ago. Now their descendants are getting the land back. Excuse me, folks. What about the United States government's agreements to us? Hell, what about the Native Americans' agreements to us? You see, when they talk about these other folks, they frame it as the government failed. When it comes to us, black folks is asking for cash. Black folks is trying to demand cash. Everyone else, they put it in context. By the way, these are failed treaties. Well, yeah, what about the agreements made to us? It says the state is taking the rare step of transferring the park with a fraught history back to a Dakota tribe, trying to make amends for events that led to a war and the largest mass hanging in U.S. history. Now, did you notice the words that they're using here? Mass hanging. You notice they didn't say mass lynching. Now, did you notice that? And they're telling you that this is part of some war atrocity. But you notice they're using the word mass hanging, but not the word mass lynching. Now, why is that? Well, we'll read on to see. Quote, "It's a place of Holocaust. Our people starved to death there," said Kevin Jinsvold, chairman of the Upper Sioux community, a small tribe with about 550 members just outside the park. The Upper Sioux Agency State Park in southwestern Minnesota spans a little more than 2 square miles, about 5 square kilometers, and includes the ruins of a federal complex where officers withheld supplies from Dakota people, leading to starvation and deaths. Decades of tension exploded into the U.S.-Dakota War of 1862 between settler colonists and a faction of Dakota people, according to the Minnesota Historical Society. After the U.S. won the war, the government hanged more people than in any other execution in the nation. A memorial honors the 38 Dakota men killed in Mankato, 110 miles from the park. Jinsvold said he spent 18 years asking the state to return the park to his tribe. He began when a tribal elder told him it was unjust Dakota people at the time needed to pay a state fee for each visit to the graves of their ancestors there. Folks, Times Square? By the way, Times Square? By the way, Seneca Village, anyone? By the way, you gotta pay a damn fee to get into Manhattan Island. But I just thought I would remind you all that, by the way, couldn't help but notice that. If you all do your history, Jason meant what he said. I didn't name one thing, I named two. For those of you who may have seen some of my previous documentaries, you'll actually realize Jason didn't misstate something. For those of you who don't know, by the way, I meant what I just said. I didn't just name one place. I named two. I'll let you all do your homework on that one. I will let you do your homework on that one. Some folks in here are like, ooh, I only heard about one. Then you need to dig deeper. Time for you to learn. Lawmakers finally authorized the transfer this year when Democrats took control of the House, Senate, and governor's office for the first time in nearly a decade, said State Senator Mary Kunesh, a Democrat and descendant of the Standing Rock Nation. A Democrat and descendant of the Standing Rock Nation. While black folk are sitting over here and some are still buck dancing for the Congressional Black Caucus, I just want you to understand that, by the way, Mary Kunesh is a member of the descendant of the Standing Rock Nation. She's gotten into office and is going right to work for her people unapologetically. She isn't trying to build coalitions. She isn't trying to lift all boats. She isn't trying to make a rising tide that lifts all boats. Did you get that one? She ain't trying to make a rising tide that lifts all boats, and we need to do something for everybody's. Did you get that? A radical difference between the results that we see over here. And she makes no bones about it. Very interesting. Says here, the tribes speaking out about injustices have helped more people understand how lands were taken and treaties were often not upheld, Kunesh said, adding that people seem more interested now in, quote, doing the right thing and getting lands back to tribes. But the transfer also would mean fewer tourists and less money for the nearby town of Granite Falls. Too bad, so sad. The park is dotted with hiking trails, campsites, picnic tables, fishing access, snowmobiling, and horseback riding routes, and tall grasses with wildflowers that dance in hot summer winds. Quote, people that want to make things right with history's injustices are compelled often to support action like this without thinking about other ramifications, Smigleski said. That's the mayor of Granite Falls. Quote, a number, if not a majority of state parks have similar sacred meaning to indigenous tribes. So where would it stop? So that's very interesting. So when his ancestors came here and steamrolled everybody, death, murder, and mayhem on an unprecedented scale, he's not the least bit arguing for that. He's not the least bit arguing for what should be done there. It's, well, where does it stop? Interesting. He didn't ask that about his forefathers and ancestors. He didn't ask, where does it stop? So if you think the colonizer mindset is dead and gone, I assure you it's not. It's just as vicious and bloodthirsty today as it's ever been. just as callous and inhumane as it's ever been. It goes on to say here that in recent years, some tribes in the US, Canada, and Australia have gotten their rights to ancestral lands restored with the growth of the Land Back movement, which seeks to return lands to indigenous people. Oh, and we already covered here where that got kicked off and came from, what the catalyst was for that. They might have been asking before, but they didn't make headway till we showed up. You're welcome. And by the way, you owe too. A national park has never been transferred from the U.S. government to a tribal nation, but a handful are co-managed with tribes, including Grand Portage National Monument in northern Minnesota, Canyon de Chelly National Monument in Arizona, and Glacier Bay National Park in Alaska. Jenny Anselmo Sarles of the National Park Service said, "This will be the first time Minnesota transfers a state park to a Native American community," said Ann Pierce, director of Minnesota State Parks and Trails at the National Resources Department. Minnesota's transfer, expected to take years to finish, is tucked into several large bills covering several issues. So in other words, their lawmakers couldn't get it through in one dose, so they put it in a number of different bills that, when aggregated together, do that. So when you got Maxine Waters and Sheila Jackson Lee and all these black folk who've been in politics all these decades, they are savvy enough about the political process to be able to do the same damn thing. And yet they haven't. Now, for illegal aliens and LGBT, they will run you and I over in a Jeep Grand Cherokee to sit up here and come stomp for them, while they hand us excuses for what hasn't been done. It goes on to say here that the bills allocate more than $6 million to facilitate the transfer by 2033. That sounds like reparations to me. That sounds like reparations to me. How much marching, how much protesting, how many political candidates, how many vice presidents, how many presidents did you have to get elected to get that? The money can be used to buy land with recreational opportunities and pay for appraisals, road and bridge demolition, and other engineering. So in other words, development. The money can be used to buy land with recreational opportunities and pay for appraisals, road and bridge demolition, and other engineering. The other engineering, that's the language to look for. Well, in other words, they want to subsidize development. They want to subsidize development. Well, this isn't being called a handout or anything. We're subsidizing development. But that's legit. Chris Wazinski and Gary Doms, the Republican lawmakers representing the portion of the state encompassing the park, declined through their aides to comment about their stances on the transfer. Showing you all a timeline here. 160 years. They're getting money from outside sources. 160 years. They are steadily on the job. 160 years. And they're even conceding, like every other major cultural and social movement in America, that it is we, the descendants of the slaves, who kicked this off. They are openly admitting that it is our culture of resistance that made it possible for them to do this. But I have a question. Where is our Native American support for reparations? Where's ours? Since they are telling you that it is our efforts that have led to these tangible benefits for them, that's very nice, very great, very wonderful here. By the way, I could not help but notice here, where's our support? If you got lawmakers out there in Minnesota, George Floyd was murdered in Minnesota. I'm waiting to see, by the way, did these lawmakers for the Native Americans here, by the way, now that you got that handled over there, by the way, what about over here? You're taking care of Native American tribes in Minnesota, but you're not taking care of the black descendants right there in Minnesota. Not taking care of that. You think that's accidental? I have always said to you all that there is a cultural significance of denying us. There's a cultural significance that they have for denying us. We have a special relationship to the dominant society of America. We got a special relationship with the white supremacist hierarchy. The Native Americans were the means to an end. They were an obstacle. They were not a cultural barometer for white success and prosperity. That's the difference. They were an obstacle to be cleared and removed. They were never established in law or in practice to be a cultural barometer that measures the success or failure of white society. You see, you can wrap your mind real easy around that. If you see a black person over there, as long as he's struggling, your whiteness is doing good. You might not be able to tell if other people are necessarily not white, but when you see black folk, you know that, okay, he's not one of us. Oh, he's over there struggling? All right, everything's good. Everything's good. Real quick litmus test. Everything's fine. So you see, every time we show up, we bring with us centuries of history with us. This is the American way, is what I'm telling you. This is the American way. Since before the founding, since the first colonies, this is the American way. The American culture is to look at the position of black people. It has always been that way, and that must be maintained. It's part of the culture to make sure that black people stay oppressed, helpless. The picture is not complete without it. If you alter that dynamic, the picture is not complete without it. That's the part I'm telling you. In their eyes, in their perspective, when they take a look at the cultural mosaic of the United States, it has always been a white man at the top, prosperous, free, in charge, in control, and black people under his iron boot, suffering, enslaved, oppressed, under control. And it does not matter how much you bow and scrape. It doesn't matter how little you're willing to accept. It doesn't matter how much you beg. It doesn't matter how much you plead. It doesn't matter how helpless you attempt to portray yourself as. This is a cultural thing. This is a cultural thing. It is a cultural fixture, is what it is. It's a cultural fixture. They are here to maintain that cultural fixture because the picture is not complete without it, which is why I can show you Native Americans not doing a fifth of what we've had to do. Riding on our momentum, the momentum that we built. But you notice they're not building momentum for us. They're not building momentum for us. As a matter of fact, this is a time-worn, time-honored strategy that we've seen play itself out over and over again. This is a time-worn, time-honored strategy. They're not the only ones. They're not the only ones. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to some of the newest entrants into the Riding Black People's Momentum Sweepstakes, so you can find out exactly what's going on with them as well. Wait till you start hearing this. Before we do, I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, CashApp, Super Chat, Venmo. Big shout out here to Tommy Felix, supporting the B1 Media. Only we can tell our story. B1 Portland, Oregon Division. Thank you very much for your support, brother. We appreciate that. To Bo Elridge McLean, this is your first time giving a Super Chat. Thank you very much for your support. We appreciate that as well. Please remember that the links to our Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal are also in the description of every video. Thank you to Cult-Like Personality and everyone else. We're going to take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. When we come back, oh, you heard about the Native Americans. Wait till you see who else is doing it. This is The Black Channel.
Hello, my name is Steve Burgess, and I'm a certified elementary school teacher and have been for 23 years. I'm the author of this book, Guidelines for the Successful Student, a closer look at parenting your school-aged child. In this book, I've explained the role of the parent and the student in addition to what accommodations, procedures, rewards and consequences and expectations that need to be in place to ensure student success from primary to high school. This book is available on Amazon.com. For more information, please visit my link tree at Easy One-on-One. And to access my latest podcast, A Teaching Moment with Mr. B.
A white supremacist assassin seeks revenge. Corrupt FBI agents with evil intentions. Dangerous black collaborators dedicated to treason. Occam Jeffers must defeat them all and somehow survive. One misstep and he's a dead man. Join Occam Jeffers as he looks the devil in his blue eyes and tells him, Black first. A sequel to the underground hit War of the Heart, Spirit of 1811 Publishing presents God Love Us, on sale at Amazon. Pre-order and save today. Visit spiritOf1811publishing.com and show your love.
More Threads, a brand owned by a descendant of Black American freedmen, was created to uniquely address Black American history and contributions that have been intentionally hidden and suppressed. Use their apparel and more to learn and share the Black American history of Black inventions, heroes, towns, Black business districts, and more. Sign up and support not only a Black-owned business, but a movement at www.morethread.co.
Order yours today to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' Natural Body Butter. With skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slaveries and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Very glad to be with you all here this evening. And before I move on to the next subject here, I just want to go ahead and remind you here, as with everything else, this is about setting the stage for the next 100 years. That's what this is about. This is about setting the stage for the next 100, 200, 300 years. So what they're doing here, and I want you to understand exactly how this works. Some of you got this and some of you understood this. And I just want to make sure that everyone sees the same thing here. Some of you saw this the first time. I want to go back and show that to you again. Yeah. This is what it's about. This is what it's about. I want you to understand that. We're bringing in other groups, we're empowering other groups, and as I've always told you, they have to be fully funded. They have to be fully funded. That's the way it's always been here. I've been warning you. Illegals, Mexico, China, everything else, H-1B visas, they're making sure that everybody is fully funded. That means that all the stuff they've been denying us and refusing to give over here to give back to us, they're making sure all these other folks are getting it now. They want to make sure that they set all these folks up now, just like South Africa. I've warned you about the apartheid strategy. I've warned you about that. So they're putting the legislation in place now. They're making the moves now. They're sending people in to go settle the land now. So that when we look up in 100 years, oh, we already gave it back to the Native Americans. Not just in one or two places. We already gave it back to the Native Americans. When we gave it back to them, we gave them millions and millions of dollars to go develop it. Yeah, there's only 500 of them. There's only 500 of them in this tribe, but we made sure they got millions. So we gave them the land, we've given them easements, we've given them no regulations, and we gave them money to go develop. You know, all the things that Dr. Claude Anderson and Jason Black have been talking about now for decades. You're seeing this happen. Doesn't take an act of Congress. It doesn't require an act of Congress. It didn't require a committee. It didn't require a hearing. It didn't require means testing. You didn't see a panel on CNN with some Native American coon telling them about why they don't need their land back. You know the stuff that they routinely do with us? They didn't bring up a Native American coon to sit up here and say, well, you know, we really don't need our land back. That would be divisive. The government has already compensated us. We really need to move. It's been so long ago. Yet you notice you're not hearing any of that here. None of it here. In place after place, city after city, state after state, they're not meeting the same resistance that we meet. The media doesn't get together and collaborate to work against us like these other folks. The media doesn't get together and collaborate to work against these other folks the way that they get on code against us. Yeah, because they understand we need them. We really need them as long as it's not black folk, because Native Americans are not trying to destroy and annihilate white supremacy. As they've shown over and over again, they merely wish to improve their situation and their conditions under it. But they do not desire to annihilate and remove it. They just want to improve their condition within the white supremacist structure, not to destroy the white supremacist structure. And as yes, we all know that most of them are actually white people to begin with, but even for the ones who are not necessarily Caucasian, they're not trying to destroy the order either. We are the only ones who are on a mission and a campaign and a crusade to rid the world of the greatest evil that mankind has ever encountered, white supremacy. We're the only ones. So you see, empowering the Native Americans doesn't actually change the status quo. Empowering us does. Because you see, we have different conversations over here. We don't have the conversations the Native Americans do. We don't have those conversations. We have a different set of conversations over here. We have a different history over here. We have a history of moving into positions of leadership, which is why it scared them in the 70s when you first started seeing black mayors pop up all over the country. You're seeing us, we ain't just running for office, we're looking to lead, not follow. And that's dangerous if you empower someone who is looking not to follow, but to lead. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. So you gotta make sure that if you're going to do that, then you've got to empower, the right people. This is from your Vice President, Kamala Harris. You can see on your screen here, boy, I'm telling you, an election year is coming. It is embarrassing as hell. It is cringe as hell. She is back with the stroller story. I guess they told her, look, this is the only thing you got. Just keep saying it, whether it's true or not. And she is saying, I was born in the fight. Which fight is that? Because what has she done or said for us, white supremacists murdering black folk all over the country? What fight is she referring to? My parents were active in the civil rights movement and would take me to marches in a stroller. Today, as Vice President of the United States, it is my honor to travel our nation, protecting freedoms and fighting for justice, opportunity, and equality. Not a word about black people in there anywhere. And what she just demonstrated is why Dr. Claude Anderson said it decades ago, and it has rung true ever since. We, the young generation, we divorced ourselves from that language of civil rights. We saw it for the trick bag it was, and we divorced ourselves from it. Now she is showing you in real time that, yeah, it's every bit the evil that he warned us it was. She's saying civil rights, but she's not referring to black people in any way, shape, form, fashion, or manner. The reality is we were and are the civil rights movement. But these other folks have come in and hijacked it, which is why our culture of resistance must now put up the ultimate fight to make sure that the intellectual and cultural real estate that we've taken is not hijacked by others. This, what you see on your screen, this is the reason why our brother Neely Fuller insisted that we tighten up the language decades ago. Brother Neely Fuller said we needed to tighten our language up decades ago. He said you gotta stop saying racism. because these folks have co-opted that term and diluted it. You must say exactly what it is so that what you say can't be corrupted. And he was the one who told us, he phrased it as racism, white supremacy, because the only racism is white supremacy. We got it and we just say white supremacy. We don't refer to it as racism anymore. We refer to it as white supremacy. So they could hijack civil rights. They could hijack racism. Can you hijack white supremacy the way you did racism or civil rights? Can you twist that one? Oh, you can't? We found our tool. And that is why today we are tightening up the language. Kamala Harris can't get any traction yelling about civil rights. She can't get no traction with that. That's DOA. That's a dead dog. She can't get any traction with that. She doesn't have any traction she can gain with that. But she's the only tool that they got, so they're going to go ahead and march her out there, even though it is embarrassing. Even though it is absolutely embarrassing. And it should be. Because she's been taking care of her people. She's been looking out for her people. She wants to jump on one side of the fence to the other when it's convenient. Now she realizes that's not going to work anymore. You're seeing her show up for crowds now, and it's a whole bunch of white folk out there. Her black support has imploded. Her black support has imploded. And what they're showing you right now is that, yeah, don't worry. You won't be going anywhere or doing anything else. We're going to go ahead and scuttle that ship right there. You won't be. She's reached the end of the line. Even if Joe Biden is unfit, there isn't anybody chomping at the bit waiting for Kamala to run. She already had her chance. She fumbled the ball. She looks incompetent. But she has been looking out for her people now, hasn't she? She'll hide behind us while she's looking out for her people. These are the reasons why we had to tighten up the language. This is the reason why we had to do that, because it was imperative that we make sure that everyone understood, and going forward that they understand, we see what you're doing. We see what you're doing, and that's why our language and vocabulary has changed. We're watching the events because we're seeing you empower everyone else. You're not doing that accidentally. You're doing that deliberately. That's not a fluke. That's policy. That's not a fluke. That's policy. However, you might disagree. Therefore, the telephone lines are now open. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933. Your personal access code to the blackest radio program in existence, the only one of its kind on planet Earth. Today, as always, you're welcome to join us. Big shout out here to my man Black Voltron in the super chat. We appreciate that. Good evening to you here, brother, as always. And my man Frederick Richburg. Shout out to everyone here who has contributed to support tonight's program. Thank you very much for your support. I appreciate that. This makes that possible because these other folks out here are buying whole damn tracts of land and then getting the government to subsidize that. We don't even have the old black media has abandoned these things. They don't talk about this. Don't look for Bowling Ball Martin, TV None, or Essence, or Ebony, or any of the rest of them to talk about this. Don't expect that. Don't expect them to do any of that. They're not going to mention any of the things that I just did, because they're here to maintain the status quo. We're here to disrupt and destroy it. They're not going to say those things. Up there in New York City, they are now saying that they want to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on illegals. Eric Adams jumping up here trying to make that a campaign slogan. We need to spend plenty of money on the illegals. And then turns around and pleads poverty when we show up. When we show up and tell them, by the way, you know, you got to go ahead and get this straight for us, right? All of a sudden there's nothing. All of a sudden there's dead silence. That's not accidental. It isn't accidental. That type of dead silence is not accidental. They've been checking to see, as I've always said, they've been checking to see whether or not we are going to maintain our consistency. They want to know if we're going to maintain that. They want to know if they can wait us out like they have before. You know why? Because a dollar in the hand of the freedman, the dollar in the hand of a foundational person is transformational. That's a dollar with a mission. That is why they have to keep as few of them in your hands as possible, because a dollar in our hands is a dollar with a mission. That's a dollar that's going to change things. It always has. That's why the crusade is on, to make sure you don't have any. We're going to go ahead and go to the phone lines here. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933. Let me get caller from area code 702. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Derek, and I'm calling from Vegas.
Derek from Vegas, and what's on your mind?
I got one question. What are the legal classifications to be in the United States as far as nationality? Isn't it only two, right? It would be American and the United States citizen. Correct?
Okay, sir, time is of the essence here. So you were told to call in because you were saying some specious things in the chat room. So let's not have lead pipe babble. What is why you usually got in the chat room talking about America first? So let's not talk silly.
Yeah. Excuse me. First of all, sir, it's a very valid question. There are only two classifications to be here legally: American and U.S. citizen. Now, Americans are the people who were here first, period. U.S. citizens came here. Am I right or wrong?
Okay, sir, what is your point? Can you get to the point? What's your point?
My point is the whole thing of black and white comes down to American and U.S. citizen. Period. Now, if you were born in 1970 to 1940, you were born a Negro American. If you were, excuse me, what?
Sir,
I didn't hear what you said.
Okay. Derek, let me find out a couple of things here. How old are you, Derek?
52.
I figured that. Derek, have you ever spent time in a correctional facility?
Yes.
How much time did you do?
5 months.
Okay. How many times have you been a guest of the state?
Once.
Just once?
I've never been a guest of the state. I've only done time in the county jail.
Okay. Do you have a degree?
No.
Okay. Have you ever considered pursuing one?
No.
Okay. And so you're going around trying to educate people that there's only two classes of folk. Okay, fine, great, wonderful. Whatever you're sir, that's enough. Sir, you've had your opportunity, sir. That's enough. You've already explained yourself ad nauseum. Whatever you're selling, we're buying. I will agree with whatever you're saying.
I'm not selling nothing.
Sir, we're agreeing with whatever you're saying. Whatever you're saying, we agree with it. Now that we are in agreement with whatever you're saying, now tell us what we're going to do about white supremacy.
Okay, first of all, the question of white supremacy is only because you're not classifying them who they are as citizens.
Okay, sir, I said, what are we going to do about it?
Now,
You're still talking. I'm saying, okay, what are we going to do about it? Now that we agree with you, now what do we do?
Well, we can actually reverse the process that actually happened in 1933, which was the confiscation of Americans' gold. That was the wealth of this nation.
Okay, sir, how exactly would you like us to do that? Because it's basically sequestered at Fort Knox and a number of reserve banks. So what exactly are you planning for us to do?
Reserve. You use the correct word, reserve. Reserve means to hold.
Okay, so we don't need etymology babble. I'm saying, what do you expect us to do? Because the government is holding and possessing the gold. And furthermore, we didn't have gold taken from us.
The United States government is holding Americans' gold, not the United States gold.
Okay, sir. We don't have a concrete claim to that, sir. We don't have a concrete claim to that. So, what is the claim? How are you going to deal with white supremacy, sir? How are you going to deal with white supremacy?
Well, the concrete claim is American. That's your nationality. You are the only American. The rest of the people here.
Okay, sir, you haven't told us how we're. Sir, you're not explaining what we're going to do. You're just going on babble about gold and exchanges. What are we going to do, sir?
Now, babble about gold and exchanges. It's very simple. The American has never made a declaration for its own bloodline.
Yes, we have,
The American
sir.
can actually declare. Excuse me?
Sir, you say excuse me a lot. You're either hard of hearing or deaf or daft. Sir, we've already done those things.
No.
We've already done those things. That's why people you cannot oppress a people that you have not specifically identified. You can't do that.
Name the year that the American actually made a declaration to be American on this land.
Sir, tell me the year that you've had tell me where your pet definition of quote American is being observed by anyone other than yourself.
Excuse me. Okay, first of all,
y'all notice he keeps saying excuse me when the person doesn't know what to say. They just kind of repeat the same banal cliche over and over again.
Well, answer this question.
Sir, I'm not going to no, sir. I'm not. No, sir. You're going to answer my question. Tell me where, other than in your head, your pet definition of American is honored by anybody other than you.
What do you mean?
Show me where in America you can go where your definition of what an American is being honored by somebody else. You've been asked that several times.
Well, I'm sorry to tell you that the classification for us right now is African American.
Okay, so in other words, no one is subscribing to your pet definition of what an American, your attempt, weak as it is, to redefine what an American is. No one's signing up for it.
No, it's not a redefinition.
So, but you're saying that nobody's signing up for it. Okay, but what you're saying is no one's signing up for your movement to redefine what an American is.
Where's the black nation?
Okay, sir. So what you're saying is no one's signing up to agree with you to redefine what an American is.
No, sir. There's thousands of people who agree with me called the American Indian.
Sir, you just admitted there's no one.
The Native American
you have no
and
support
American
for that.
Indian is two different people.
Okay.
That's recognized by the U.S. government.
Sir, if it's recognized by the U.S. government, then you should have already made whatever claims and gotten whatever progress you wanted to, because I just showed you Native Americans who were getting land all over the place. Where's yours?
First of all, Native American is actually classified as a U.S. citizen.
Okay.
Legally.
Now, this is what I want you all. This is what I want you all. Okay, Derek, let me find out here something here. Derek, do you have any children?
No.
Okay. Thank God.
I'm married.
Thank God. Okay. Well, at least we got that much going here.
Well, you don't have any either.
Derek, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go take whatever you think you're going to do and I want you to go press that case in court or wherever you think you're going to press it. But do not do it in my chat room again, sir.
You answer my question?
Sir, I've answered your question. Do not raise this in my chat room again. You're just going on historical babble is all you're doing.
Historical babble?
Yes.
So you're saying the actual confiscation of gold in 1933 didn't happen?
Okay, call dropped here. Understand something. When you dealing with these old niggas, they spent their lives not accomplishing anything. So what they do is they grow up with a joint in one hand, whiskey in the other, and some weird tattered book of spells or spookiness in between. They don't actually accomplish anything. You already found me, dude. What are you talking about? I'ma find you. Dude, you already found me. I can find you too. I can probably smell you coming. I hope you don't think you're gonna sneak up on me. Because first of all, it might be the last time you ever walk around sneaking up on anything, just to let you know. But second of all, nigga, I can smell you before you show up.
Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order?
Dude, what you gonna do? No, don't block him in the chat. I want to find out here. You listen here, you corn cob eating nigga. What is it you think you're going to do? What exactly is it that you think you're going to do? I'm gonna find you, Jason. Nigga, meet the director. A bunch of people have found me. Y'all tell me exactly what do you think he's going to do? What exactly is it that he's alleging he's going to do? Fella, I will knock you down and clip your raggedy toenails so that you stop grabbing newspapers with your feet. Like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. I'ma find you, Jason. Nigga, you need to find a job. You need to find a job and a vowel. Jason, I'm gonna find you. You need to find a 600 plus credit score. That's what you need to find. Stop fantasizing about gold. You need to find a minimum wage job and a 600 plus credit score. And a captive lender. That's what you need to find. Jason, I'm gonna find you. Nigga, you need to find your GED. Maybe I can help you with that one. Y'all, he's looking for me. He needs to be looking for his 10th grade math teacher. That's who he needs to be trying to find. Sir, you're pursuing the wrong person. You're interested in locating the wrong person. You don't need to find Jason Black. You need to find Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. That's who you need to find. You need to find your dad. Assuming you two are not in side-by-side cells in the county, you need to find your dad. Jason, I'm gonna find you. You need to find some rationality is what you need to find. You need to find your Ritalin. Stop worrying about me. I'm inconsequential. You've got bigger issues. Clearly you do. You need to go find that gold you claim got taken from you. You need to go find that one. Can y'all imagine this nigga digging up through the bottom of Fort Knox like a Bugs Bunny cartoon? Can you imagine that? Can you all imagine him? Well, we know with the gold it is being held in reserve. Why don't you go reserve your table to get some? Can you imagine him with a shovel trying to dig under Fort Knox like El Chapo? I'm coming for it. All right. Dig. Jason don't believe me. He don't get it. He doubt me. I'm going to get up in there, though. Get what's ours. And they stole it from us. I'm coming to get that. All right, Jason, get over here. All right. On your way to Fort Knox, tell me if you see a nigga out there with bird feet talking about beep beep. Okay. If on your way there, if you run into him, let us know. Caller from area code 505, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Jason Black. This is Rising, New Mexico. Can you hear me?
All right, Rising in where?
New Mexico.
All right, Rising where at New Mexico?
Albuquerque and Santa Fe area.
All right, what's on your mind?
We love you, bruh. So let's get straight to the point. The only racism is white devilment, falsely labeled supremacy. What we have to do is promote pound black force reparations. So go to fightthepower.com. That's
okay, sir.
Fightthepower.com.
Sir, let's not have cocaine battle. First of all, let's say I'm being inundated by the Fez Society. Nigga, nobody wants to go to your janky ass website. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody's gonna go to your janky ass website and sign up for your Amazon Fire Sticks. Okay, it's not happening. Is there anybody who wants to go to Fight the Dusty? Is there anyone who wants to go to fightthedusty.com so you can go purchase his Amazon Fire Sticks? Is there anyone who would be interested in doing that? Would anyone like to go to fightthedustiness.com and purchase a Fire Stick? Would anyone like to go to fightthepomouth.com and see if you can purchase some bootleg VHS cassettes? Is there anybody looking for that? He would like to know. Would any of you like to go by his website? Fighttheash.com. I'm just checking here. Anybody want to go to fighttheashy.com? No, nobody? Nobody? No one at all. All right. If you all change your mind, just go to fighttherash.com. Caller from area code 770. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Vex with a V as in Vancouver, calling from Toronto.
All right, Vex in Toronto. What's on your mind?
Yes, there's a bill, HR 4321, sponsored by Congressman Babin out of Texas. Query, in your opinion, were this ever to pass, would this basically kill any chance of our receiving reparations?
No, because this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. Folks have been talking about this and stuff, and I need them to understand here. This is a sprint, not a marathon. And furthermore, it is not just one thing. This is the first in many steps. So anybody who thinks that this is going to be a one-trick pony or anything like that, they're thinking too short-sighted, and they haven't been listening to anything we've had to say. So I'm not worried about that at all, because this is not a marathon. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And we don't just have one leg and one arm to deal with it. So don't be worried about it. And by the way, he needs reparations so he can get a new phone cord. So Derek is gonna go get you some gold bars so he can buy a new phone cord there, brother. Derek is gonna go on a mission to get some gold coins from Fort Knox. He's gonna get you a new phone cord, and he's gonna get the other doofus a couple of Amazon Fire Sticks like Omi and the Hellcat. So he's gonna make sure all of y'all are covered. We don't want anyone to do without. Caller from area code 215, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, this is Janessa from Philadelphia.
All right, Janessa from Philadelphia, what's on your mind?
Tremessa. I'm calling because you were talking about the Native Americans and how they're actually standing up and using the fight power that we had to start to go for things that are due to them. And these things are pretty old now, that they're still fighting for and starting to make accomplishments. Do you think that we, as African Americans, can parlay on some of the things that they get back through some of those treaties that we were supposed to have with those, through the treaties that said that we're supposed to, get things from them, and then they turned their back on us and said, we're not giving you, as the freedmen, anything. The Native Americans that owned us as slaves.
That's the whole reason for doing what I'm doing. Because the reason why we're the black media is because this gives us a national forum and a national dialogue and a national narrative to get codified behind. Up until the last 10, 15 years, we were still talking about we're all minorities. And we were operating under the civil rights generation's cowardly paradigm that if we can just help minorities by saying minorities, that will be less offensive to the dominant society, and they'll finally go ahead and let these benefits come to us because, see, we think we being slick. We ain't fighting for black folks, we fighting for minorities, and we're going to smuggle ourselves in with the, quote, minorities. Now that's changed. Now what you got is a very clear, concise discussion and framing of the terms. But along with that is you're going to have to understand that all these groups, a lot of these groups that we were sitting up here acting like we got camaraderie with, they're looking out for themselves. They just been using us and piggybacking. So I've been saying now for a decade, you can't have 6 decades of black folks saying we represent everybody. We here for everyone. As if we're some religious movement. We're not a religious movement. We're a distinct people. So what we've been defending before now was erroneous. Now we're finally saying what it should be. But now that you've gotten to the heart of the matter, get ready for the real fight. Because they haven't been changing the deck chairs and rearranging the terms and playing the shell game by accident. They've been doing it specifically to avoid what we are demanding. Specifically to avoid that. So you see, they can give these concessions to the Native Americans, as I explained at the beginning of the program. That's not going to change the status quo. That's why they can do it. They can give these concessions to the Afghans and Ukrainians. That's not going to change the status quo. If you give it to us, however, now that's going to change the status quo. And along with that change, many of the other so-called minority groups that we were letting the previous generations tell us that we were working to help, they're joining together with the dominant society to stop us. Because what do we just tell them? We want to change the status quo. Why do you think you have that Asian group run by that Blum guy? Why do you think you got them
Edward
specifically
Blum
targeting us? How do you think that came together like that? Well, yeah, he's got Asian support because they're like, yeah, you all are trying to overturn the status quo. You're trying to change it. See, here's the thing. If you saw my documentary Race War, I don't know if you did, but if you didn't, you can go check that out at TheBlackChannelFilms.com. I talked to Jared Taylor, premier white supremacist. And he was talking about how Asians don't complain about racism, this, that, and the other, and all that stuff there. Well, you know what? He was right. He was right about that part. He said if there's systemic racism, what about Asian folk? And to which he talked to the right one, got shut down in one sentence. I said, you know what? That's very interesting because you see, Asians make up 60% of the workforce at these Silicon Valley companies, and yet they're less than 10% of the corporate leadership. How can you be 60% of the workforce and yet practically none of the corporate leadership? To which he said, well, maybe it's because they're not management minded. Maybe it's because I'm like, okay, maybe. Maybe it is. Do you even hear yourself? Yes, you do. You didn't think somebody could dissect it that quickly. These arguments mathematically don't make sense if you eliminate white supremacy. But the thing that he did understand is that when white people go to Asia, they are treated like gods. When you take a look at your manga, you take a look at your anime, white people are the prototype. Even among Asian cinema. You go to South Korea, they call it corrective surgery for the eyes to remove their elliptical folds. So I'm telling you, this is a cultural subservience going on. Yeah, we can talk about India. Shout out Kamala Harris. We can talk about India. But my point is, do you see, these people are not trying to destroy the status quo. When they get into a position, first thing they do is start upholding it. So this is a new conversation going on now. This conversation isn't the one that's been going on for the last 70 years. This is brand new. This is one that centers us. This is one that puts our interests first. And this is one that's radically different. So just understand, they can make those concessions to these other folk because the strategy is that this won't actually change the status quo. As a matter of fact, we're empowering people that only want to empower and reinforce the status quo. How could we lose? That's not a concession we need to be worried about. We need to be worried about these other folks over here. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I was just thinking that maybe we could also, whatever's happening with the Native Americans, we can sit back a little bit, and then
well, you won't be able
what we
to.
could do is we can
You won't be able to. You won't be able to.
Sorry?
You won't be able to because you see what they've done is something that is strictly and specifically by name for them. It is exclusionary. So in other words, as much of what we've been trying to do, they've been allowed to do so. But first of all, what they're doing is exclusionary. It's not inclusionary. It is being engineered in such a way to exclude us, to make sure that they're saying, oh, well, these people are making a different argument from what you all are making. They're not making an argument based on slavery. They're making an argument based on land. Now, you and I both understand that the real argument is based on resources. But what they're going to tell you is that, well, yeah, they're making an argument based on land. They're not making an argument based on, financial compensation, direct financial compensation, which of course is not. But once they made the argument for the land, then you smuggle in the financial compensation afterward, which is something different from what we've been saying in that regard. So first of all, the white governmental agencies are not going to allow that. Second of all, the Native Americans will not allow it. If we show up, watch these same Native Americans, remember they're the ones who dispossessed us from the 5 so-called civilized tribes, they're going to be showing up saying, yeah, not them, not you. This applies to us, not you. They're going to be showing up to do that. Hell, they're already doing it. So just understand the pathway that was made for them was made specifically for them. Now what you're saying is the rationale and the legal precedent. From a social perspective, sure. But even then, I don't think that helps us because once again, the Native Americans will be there to say that this is specifically for them. So even as setting a cultural precedent, it is so niche. And the other thing is they're doing these things so quietly. Most of you didn't even know this had happened until I said something. So they're doing it so quietly, specifically so that it avoids exactly what you're talking about doing. Because in order to do what you're talking about, you would have to get popular public support behind it. Because remember, our politicians are not serving our interests. The Native Americans' politicians are serving theirs. See, there's a key difference.
Yeah.
Who are the people you go talk to? That's why I was making a point to you. By the way, you got a member of one of the tribes in the legislature, and she's going straight to work for them unapologetically. You don't have that. You had Elijah Cummings and John Lewis literally sitting there yelling and screaming and crying, what about the children of the illegal? Pass me my Hennessy. While denying that we had any issue at all. You had them having sit-ins for LGBT and illegals. He didn't even sit up here and order a Slurpee for us. So when you take a look at all the pieces that are in place, just recognize what you're really seeing here. We've got a social apparatus that was unified. We got charity organizations coming to the rescue. You've got lawyers involved. You've got politicians at the state level, not the federal level, the state level, who organized on their behalf, members of their group. You have a media apparatus that is covering for them and framing it to their advantage. You got all that going on. We don't have all that. I'm not saying that, and of course, the real idea I'm giving here tonight, and what you're saying is consistent with that. So I'm not dismissing that. What you're saying is consistent that, yeah, as a playbook, this should be something for us. I want us to be aware of one thing, because we can't follow their playbook, not because it's not just. In a just world, we'd be able to do it. My point to you is it's not a just world. If we try this, we're going to get the same, more of the same what we got. And they're going to say, oh, this is different. What we can do, however, is recognize where this does help us is the argument that you can't plead poverty. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the illegals up in New York. You can't plead poverty to us and you dropping $300 million for them a year. So this shuts down erroneous conversations before they even get started. Now that part it does. Well, Jason, what's the benefit of that? Sister, do you know how hard it is to get black folk to agree on any one thing? Do you know how hard it is to get black folk to be on the same page for any one thing? Name one thing that the majority of black folk are on the same page about. Do you know how hard that is? So just getting to that point is difficult enough. The advantage that Native Americans, Jewish people, Asian people have is their numbers are not as voluminous as ours. Now, that's actually an advantage. That's why I was pointing out to you all that you got a Native American tribe that's talking about they got 550 members. Ma'am, could you imagine how easy it would be for us to organize 550 people? We got to organize over 40 million. They only have to organize a few hundred or a few thousand. Life would be a lot easier if that was all you had to do. We can get a few thousand people on code on the same page. That's a whole lot easier. We got black folk across different age groups, different generations, many of which come from the buck dancing civil rights generation, and they see us as just troublemakers. You see, you don't have old folk among the Native Americans talking about the young people are troublemakers. When they were sitting up there trying to stop the Keystone Pipeline and everything else, the old folks wasn't telling them, y'all young folk need to pull your pants up and go home. Stop making all this trouble out here. They had the support of the old. We don't. So I'm just drawing all that together. What you're saying is a social precedent, sure, but just understand what its usefulness is. That if at the state level, they've set the precedent that 160 years, you can't use the chronological argument anymore. You're using the justice argument, and make sure you keep it there. It's just like with reparations. Our argument is lineage-based, not racism-based. So for this part right here, we're talking about justice-based. You've already acknowledged that. You've made that concession for the Native Americans. We can use the same rationale. We'll have to use different arguments and understand they will not give it up so easily for us. Not at all. You will make the same arguments the Native Americans are making, and they're going to be like, yeah, we don't think so. That doesn't mean we don't do it. That doesn't mean we don't do it. Please understand what I'm saying. That doesn't mean we don't do it. I just want you to understand what you're up against and what's going to happen when you go through the first door so that you recognize why I'm handing you this battering ram. Your arguments are logical. It's the natural conclusion. It's why I did tonight's program. But just understand what's going to happen next. We're going to have to force the issue. Us getting on code as a group is the first step. I'll let you have the last word.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I think we're just mixed with so much. We're mixed with white, black, Native American, of all tribes, and it's kind of hard to put the stake down in the ground and charge in one category when we have to get on code first.
Well, like I say, yes, we can sometimes identify as different ethnic groups, but this is why when I coined the phrase Black first, there's a reason why I coined that, because as Malcolm said, that's what we can all agree on. That's what we can all galvanize around. I can't necessarily galvanize around being a New Yorker or being a Christian or being a Muslim or being college educated, but we can all galvanize around being Black. Now that we can all agree on, whether you have some Native American heritage, a lot of us do, whether you have some Caucasian heritage, a lot of us do, whether you have some religious heritage, some of us do. Mm-hmm. We've got a lot of folk who come from a lot of different areas, but what we can galvanize around is Blackness. Now, because that's the reason that you've been targeted. That's why you've been targeted right there. So that's what you can galvanize around. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We appreciate that. Let me get caller from area code 773. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from? Okay, caller from 773 has been abducted. Caller from area code 415. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, this is Denise in San Francisco.
Okay, Denise in San Francisco is calling us on her lunar moon landing phone. It's breaking up on you there. All right, what's on your mind?
Well, first I want to say that my phone company notified me by making this call. They're going to charge me extra, okay? But I'm calling anyway. I just want to say I think it's very important for Black people to stay consistent on this issue. Now, I started in the reparation movement over 20 years ago, and I was slapped by all kind of nonsense from our people, the Black politicians, et cetera, et cetera. And I find it interesting, this ADOS crowd, they act like they invented the reparation movement. No, a lot of people I started off with in the reparation movement over 20 years ago, they're dead. And I'm still pressing forward and encouraging other people to press forward. We got to be consistent on this issue.
I agree. Persistence on it, no matter what's going on, that's key. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. I was expecting Neil Armstrong to come through. One small step for a man, one giant leap for man. Caller from area code 412. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Good evening, Jason. My name is Robert. I'm calling from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm enjoying your narrative today immensely, because you have been a barometer that we should be on code to follow, because you're not pulling any punches, and you're telling the truth. And it's been said, only the fools will duck when truth is thrown at them. But non-neglect policy potentiates exclusionary tactics by other groups who are mimicking white supremacy. That's what I've been noticing. It seems that Black elders are complacent because they've reached a level that was systematically denied by Jim Crow, etc. We have no friends. And brothers and sisters, I'm going to tell you that if we don't get together and be on code with the common good, this delusion of our focus will be disastrous for us. So, that said, we need to have a code of ethics, a code of focus, and keep on the track toward repertorial compensation that we are deserved.
I definitely agree with
no
that.
question. And Jason, I just want to let you know that I really appreciate what you're doing, and you're at the level of so many of our greats. And people can't understand that, and they feel like it's a personal attack against their intellect, but it's not. You're sacrificing, trying to help us get together, and I respect you for that, and I immensely appreciate that, brother. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much for your support, brother. We appreciate that. Let me get caller from area code 929. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Daryl from Chicago.
All right, Daryl from Chicago. What's on your mind?
Excellent broadcast as always, Jason. This right here hits home. The group that is out here talking about reparations here in Chicago, we listened. Everybody tonight is listening to the broadcast. you hit the nail right on the head. You've been sharing this information with us for quite some time and piggybacking off of everything that we do. And it seems like they're trying to do that playbook. But you just explained to one of the prior callers that what our intentions are and what we're going to do. And you hit the nail right on the head on that end as well, because at this point, we know we're going to get it. It's just what are they going to do? How? And we already know what the terms are. We know what we have to bring and present. But again, staying on code, that's the number one thing. We stay on code with this thing, we're going to get it. We're going to get it without no problems. But I just want to thank you for everything, all the information that you give, the insight and the professional insight. Because a lot of these people out here, they give insight, they don't give all the professional stuff. They don't do that. You take it to a whole new level, and you're sharing it with us and letting us know the next 10 steps, not the next 10 steps, the light year steps ahead. And we appreciate that as well. Thank you much, B1.
B1, brother, thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller from area code 318. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from? Okay, caller from area code 318 has been abducted. All right, well, definitely here tonight, like I say, I want to put this in this proper context for everyone. I want to put it in this context because I want you to see exactly what you're dealing with here. And as a cultural movement, we have to be able to mark where things are going. So when they're telling you what can't be done, I'm just bringing you the documentation of what is happening. So if they tell you we don't have any money in New York and they're giving $300 million to illegals, you're like, whoa, there's the money right there. The federal government, we don't have any money here. You gave trillions for COVID, trillions, billions for Afghanistan, billions for Ukraine. You can go break us off about half of that. There's our reparations money right there. Cut the check. You can break it off right there from that. Right there from that. That'll work. Let me get one more caller here. Caller from area code 773. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, hey, Jay, this is Bill calling out of Chicago.
Okay, Bill out of Chicago. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Jay, you're doing an excellent broadcast. I just want to say that to be honest with you, I just want to say that with reparations, that I think that you understand what it takes to get us our reparations. And I'm just waiting for you to really tell the people what we really need to do. You know, I'm just going to talk in codes because you already know what I'm trying to say. And I think that the other people who are highly intelligent really know what I am saying. That, you know, I would just sit back and just ready for you to really say what we need to really do, because
what we really need to do is we need to be on code. That's the first thing we need to be on code for. Right. Like everyone else here, we have to recognize what our mission is. Our mission is not religion. Our mission is not social justice per se. Our mission is not integration. Our mission is not higher education. Black empowerment is measured and defined as one thing: dollars. They're not fighting us to keep us from education, quote, education. They're not fighting to keep us from integration. Hell, they're not even fighting to keep us from interracial sexual access. But what they have taken the streets on, maneuvered every piece of social engineering to do, is to prevent us from becoming economically empowered, because they hate you because you are black, but they're able to victimize you because you're poor. So if you were black and affluent, you wouldn't be so readily available to be victimized. But if you are black and poor, you're the easiest person to victimize. Now, getting together for physical safety, of course, there's ways to do that. But just understand, in the long run, you lose the game if you can't get the economics where they need to be, because you live in a world that runs on money. That's what you need to do. Everything you do needs to be focused on that for the benefit of your people. You're first on code. That tells you you're black. What is the mission of being on code? The socioeconomic empowerment. That's how we ensure ourselves going forward. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the Haven of Intelligent Black Thought. We do this every weekend. Click that red subscribe button. Click that yellow notification bell. Join us each and every time that we're here. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, you want to go and check out our groundbreaking, best-selling documentary work, 7 a.m., Gentrified, Race War, all available on DVD and streaming. Go to blackchannelfilms.com. That is blackchannelfilms.com. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, CashApp, Super Chat, Venmo. My man Black Voltron, thank you very much for staying on the flex for us here. My man Pookie Jenkins, stop trying to be liked, be black first, and respect will come from that. You're damn right. Thank you to everyone else here tonight as well, Mr. Wilburn, Rhonda, and everyone else. I want to thank all of you for joining us for tonight's program. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, black is the future, and the future is uncompromising.